for the introduction. I'm going to get started right away today because I seem to have a knack for running overtime, so I don't want to lose any of you if you just have an hour to be with us today. So welcome to Plant-Based Italian Cooking. I'm going to get started right away with some bruschetta. Bruschetta is a wonderful, versatile Italian, I don't know if I can call it a dip, it's a sauce, it's many things, but I kind of think of it as an appetizer, but I'm going to show you 3 different things that you can do with bruschetta today. And it's really easy to put together. You're just going to start with some diced tomatoes, and today I'm going to use some red Roma tomatoes, and I'm also throwing in a few baby heirloom tomatoes for some nice color. Just going to put these in my bowl. And to this beautiful tomato mixture, we're going to add some fresh garlic. I use fresh garlic or the garlic cloves when I'm at home, but here during the class, it's a little easier to use the pre-chopped garlic. So I'm going to put a healthy amount in there. And then just mix it around a bit, see if I have enough. Looks good. And the next thing I'm going to do is add some fresh basil. And my favorite way to cut basil is a chiffonade cut, and it makes these beautiful little strips of basil. And if you'd like to try this at home, all you need to do is to lay out your basil leaves, make a stack of them, and then roll them from one end. Make a tight little roll. And then take a nice sharp knife and just make nice thin cuts on your roll of leaves. It smells wonderful up here. Can you smell it yet? Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to mix this in. And I think I'm going to add a smidge more of the garlic. And then most bruschettas just have sort of an olive oil dressing on them that binds them. I like to kick it up a notch with some balsamic vinegar. And I'm going to use a mixture of balsamic vinegar, fresh garlic, more garlic, a little bit of grapeseed oil, just a pinch of sugar, and some black pepper. And like last time, if you'd like recipes, if you'd like to know the amounts, if you want to make this at home, let the library know and we'll get recipes emailed to you. Is that okay, TJ? I guess I should have asked ahead of time, but I'm hoping that setup will work.
Yeah, that's great. Anybody who would like to receive recipes from today can just send an email to programming@ranchomiragelelibrary.org, and we'll get those off to them.
Okay. The hardest part is just chopping all the tomatoes, so you can just throw this together in a few minutes. Now I'm going to move it over here and put it in this pretty bowl. And with your bruschetta, it's wonderful with crackers. It's wonderful on toasty baguette, and it's wonderful if you toss it with some warm pasta. It makes a great, fragrant, tasty pasta sauce. And there you go. Very easy. Okay. We're on track. I'm not going to go overtime today. Oh, I do, because I love the balsamic vinegar flavor, I am going to drizzle a little bit of balsamic glaze. This is pretty easy to find if you're interested. This one is actually from Costco, but most of the local stores here in the Valley do carry it. And if not this brand, there are many other brands that you can get. So now we're going to move over to our pesto. We're going to make a vegan pesto today, and multiple things you can do with the vegan pesto. It makes a great pasta sauce. It makes a great sandwich spread, or it makes a wonderful garlic bread. So if you just smooth it on a baguette and toast it under the broiler, it'll make a wonderful accompaniment to any of your pasta dishes. So to make this comes together really easily, but you do need a food processor for best results. I'm going to add some toasted pine nuts. Pine nuts generally come untoasted or raw, but thanks to Trader Joe's, I didn't have to toast mine today. But if you do end up with the raw ones, just heat them in a dry pan over a medium-high heat until they turn golden brown, and you'll be ready to go. But thanks to Trader Joe's, these are pre-roasted. If you use the raw ones, you'll get a lot different flavor. So I really enjoy the flavor using the toasted pine nuts. I'm also going to throw some garlic in here. Quite a bit of garlic. And now we're going to put some of this beautiful organic basil in. And I'm going to put everything in except for the large stems. And you can just pick it off the stems like that. Oh, this smells wonderful. Does anybody grow basil at home? I do too, and I had a beautiful plant, but the summer was not kind to it. These packages of basil, organic basil from Trader Joe's are wonderful. They are just packed full of this beautiful large leaf basil that's so aromatic. A little bit more. Once it gets processed, it's gonna need a lot more in there. Okay. Gonna just pulse this lightly a few times. And now I'm gonna add some plant-based Parmesan cheese. This particular brand is called Follow Your Heart. It's pretty easy to find. I think every major grocery store in the area here carries it. I do like the flavor of this one. There's several versions out there, but I think this one's pretty good. I'm gonna put a generous amount in there. And I'm gonna add the rest of my basil. Okay, I think we have most of them. Oops, one more thing. So now I'm going to add a couple of spoonfuls of a plant-based mayonnaise. This brand is Best Foods. Easy to find. All the local stores have it. And most pesto recipes have oil in them, olive oil usually, but I'm going to use mayonnaise to bind my ingredients. So I'm just going to mix it a little bit. Okay, just like that, easy pesto. And we're going to use this a couple of different ways today, like I mentioned before. First thing I'm going to do is make a beautiful sandwich. And I'm going to start with a toasted ciabatta roll. Actually, I'll make 2 of these. And I'm going to take our pesto mayonnaise and put a generous amount on the roll. Can you see the beautiful green color? That basil smells really strong. And this will keep in your refrigerator for about a week. And just wonderful to throw on a bagel or use it in place of mayonnaise on any sandwiches you might be making. And the next thing I'm going to do is add some fresh plant-based mozzarella. And today I'm using Miyoko's Creamery. It's a local California company. It was created by Miyoko Schinner, and she's a really neat woman. And she has really good packaging. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get into here. But she has a full line of plant-based cheeses and butters, cream cheese, all different wonderful things, shredded cheese. And yeah, she just has really neat products, and she's a neat woman. She also runs an animal sanctuary where she lives. So I'm just going to put some of this fresh mozzarella on our sandwich. That aside. And by the way, you can find the Miyokos just about everywhere. Walmart carries it. All the local grocery stores carry it. It's pretty easy to find. And then I have this beautiful heirloom tomato that I found this morning. And I'm going to cut some nice slices of it. I'm going to switch knives. A beautiful tomato. And then we're going to add a little bit of fresh spinach that I have somewhere around here. Here we go. And we have a beautiful Caprese sandwich. because I love the vinegar, I'm going to add a little bit of the balsamic glaze straight over the mozzarella. And there we go. Beautiful sandwiches. Okay, for somebody to enjoy later on. All right, proud of myself. I think I'm on schedule. Very unusual. Give me just a moment to switch out my equipment here. And the next dish we're going to make is a pasta dish, a gnocchi pasta. And we're going to use our pesto sauce as the pasta sauce. And we're going to add some mushroom, green peas, and spinach. So I'm going to saute the mushrooms in a little bit of grapeseed oil. And a little bit of sweet onion. So get that onion on to cook, and then we'll cut our mushrooms. Any kind of mushrooms are fine. We're just using some white button mushrooms. Easiest way to cut a mushroom, because they're round and wobbly, is to cut one end so that you get a flat surface, turn it on that side, and then continue to cut. That way it's not going to roll away from you when you're cutting. Okay, we're going to add these to our pan. Most chefs are going to use olive oil, particularly when they're cooking Italian food. But I'm a big fan of avocado oil and grapeseed oil. They have high burn points, so they hold up well when you're cooking with them. But they also both have really neutral flavors. I just got to a point where I felt like everything tasted like olive oil many years ago. And I just decided to switch it up, and it's been several years. And I may revisit olive oil again someday, but right now I'm just enjoying the grapeseed and the avocado oil. So any of you ever cook with the gnocchi? They're little dumplings, little pasta balls, but one of the main ingredients in them is potato. And they're pretty easy to find. They're sold dry, and you just pop them in boiling water until they float to the top. It's about 3 minutes and they're ready to go. They're good. Once they're cooked, they're nice and tender. They just have a really nice flavor. And most of them are made without egg. You do need to read the ingredients if you're trying to keep things plant-based. But Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, they both have a store brand of these that are egg-free. So they work for our purposes.
Hey, Shannon.
Yeah.
One of our online viewers is wondering what brand is the balsamic glaze and what makes it a glaze?
So it's a balsamic vinegar that's been reduced down to a thick syrup. This particular brand is called Nana Pia's. They do have it at Costco for a good price, and it's a nice product. But it's cooked down until it's in a syrupy consistency, and that's what a glaze is. Whereas the vinegar, it's just, it's liquid, but that's been reduced until it becomes syrupy. So it has a richer flavor than the vinegar. It's more concentrated.
Another question came in on, does the plant-based fresh mozzarella melt?
Yes, it does. A lot of them do not. They just kind of sit there when you try and melt them. But that brand melts beautifully. There are two different kinds. There's the traditional one, which is the one I have, and then she also has one that's smoky mozzarella. Okay, our vegetables or our mushrooms and onions are getting tender. I'm going to go ahead and toss the pasta in. Now, this is something that I boiled ahead of time and just tossed with a little bit of grapeseed oil. You can't skip the boiling step. They do need to boil until they float to the surface. But if you want to prep them ahead of time, just toss them with a little vegan butter or oil, and it'll keep them from sticking together. I'm just going to keep tossing these until they become warm. A really popular way to serve these is with a brown butter and sage sauce on them. It's quite popular in restaurants. It's really easy to do with vegan butter. Just do a chiffonade cut of some fresh sage. Cook it in some vegan butter until the butter starts to lightly brown. And then toss in your gnocchi. And you've got a quick and easy meal that's delicious. So once our little dumplings are heated, I'm going to add in some of our pesto mayonnaise that we made earlier. nice warm, so I'm going to toss in a little of our flavoring here. Going to turn it nice and green. Can you smell it? I wish you at home could smell it. It smells yummy. Basil, garlic. Okay, and if you remember, our pesto had some vegan Parmesan in it. And I'm just heating this until the Parmesan that's in here starts to get melty. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to do is turn off the heat. And I'm going to add two things. Some frozen peas. And I'm adding them, first of all, I always cook with frozen peas. They maintain their bright green color and they never spoil. They're just a great thing to have on hand. And if I add them at the end of the recipe like this, they're not going to start to turn that kind of yellowy brown color that they get if they sit a long time. So they're tossed in right at the end. And then I'm going to do the same with some fresh spinach. And I'm doing this at the end because I want it to wilt, but I don't want it to cook. Looks like my triple wash spinach was not triple washed so well. Okay, and I'm just going to fold this in and it will begin to wilt. And then we're going to put this in one of our white bowls. Beautiful. And it's very green, so we're going to give it a little bit of color. I have some heirloom tomatoes that I held back. Just going to put those tomatoes on there for color. And I also have a few of the toasted pine nuts.
Somebody was wondering about the brand of the gnocchi.
This one today is from Trader Joe's. You can tell I hit Trader Joe's today. I have a lot of things from there, but it smells good. And you could even, for some more color, sprinkle some of your bruschetta on there just to give it a little more color. But there we go. So the last thing, and I pre-made this, so we'll just talk about how I put it together, but we're going to do a plant-based lasagna. In the past, or quite often, I make a lasagna with a cashew cream filling. And I'm really happy with the results of that. I like the flavors, but I know not everybody wants to go to the trouble of making a cashew cream sauce, but if you do, I have that recipe that I'll share with you. Let me know. But I decided to use things that you can easily find in the store, like a plant-based ricotta. And today I have Kite Hill ricotta that I used for the cheese filling. And it's good. It has a really nice consistency, but it's a little plain, so I just added some garlic and some onion to it, a little bit of basil, and a little salt and pepper. And just gave it a little flavor, and it's ready to go. Delicious. I also added some of the plant-based Parmesan cheese. And this brand was Follow Your Heart. I think that'll stay. So I pre-cooked the noodles. I made the sauce, the marinara. So I just did a classic marinara, but I used Impossible beef in it today. That's really easy to find. I know a lot of people are curious about it, so I thought I'd use it today. Sometimes at home I don't put anything, no meat substitutes into it, just the marinara, but I know a lot of people are curious about them. There's a Beyond Beef, there's Impossible beef. Just about every store that I can think of carries them now. And so I thought I'd use those so that you could try them. I just cooked that with some onion and garlic, and then crushed tomatoes and some basil, seasoning, and a little bit of balsamic vinegar, and that was my marinara. And then the cheese filling we already talked about, used a little bit of the Follow Your Heart Parmesan, the Kite Hill ricotta with some seasonings and herbs, and then just layered it with the pre-cooked noodles and baked it, and it was really easy. So I'm going to cut into this and serve some up. So last time I went so far over time that I was determined not to go over today, and today I think I'm going to be under time. I promise next month it'll be a happy medium, right on time, TJ.
We do have a question about last month while you're cutting. Can I ask a question
Sure,
about last month
sure,
that came in?
sure.
They said they absolutely loved the sushi. It was terrific.
Oh.
But they had some difficulty getting sticky rice to stick together. Any suggestions?
Well, two things can affect whether or not the rice sticks together. One, you have to make sure you rinse it really well before you cook it. And I do that by just putting it in I have an oversized measuring cup, and I'll put the rice in, fill it with water, swish it around with my hand, drain the water off, and I'll keep doing that until the water runs clear. It takes probably 5 or 6 times before that happens, so you just have to be patient and keep rinsing that rice with your hand until that water runs clear. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the rice vinegar. Once you've washed all that starch off the rice, it should stick once you add the rice vinegar and sugar mixture. So I suspect maybe it wasn't rinsed well enough, but that's probably the culprit. And I'm so glad to hear somebody tried it at home. That makes me so happy. So let's see if I can get this. This has had plenty of time to cool, so hopefully I can get this out of the pan looking somewhat decent. And I left some of the noodles in the pan, but that's okay.
One of our viewers, Barbara, asked, she said, when you did the lasagna for the live class a few years ago, what filling did you use? It was delicious.
Oh, thank you. That was the cashew cream filling. And I make that. I can tell you about that. Went back and forth on whether or not to do that today, but opted to use the store-bought ricotta. But the cashew cream filling, I make it in a blender, and I put about 2 cups of raw cashews in the blender, fill it with plant milk. I usually use oat milk to the top of the cashews. Then add some fresh garlic, some onion powder, some pepper, some salt, and some caramelized onions. And I blend that until it's smooth and creamy. And having a high-quality blender is a big part of it. I love Vitamix blenders. They can turn anything into just a smooth, creamy consistency. But that's how you make the cashew cream sauce. And you can adjust the thickness of it by adding a little more, a little less of the plant milk. But it makes a really, really delicious lasagna filling.
So that was the sauce as opposed to the tomato sauce?
No, it's the layering instead of cheese.
Oh.
Yeah, and it sounds a little strange. I kind of wish I had done that today now so that you could try it. But yeah, it makes a really nice creamy interior for the lasagna. And I know in Italy they don't, this is our American version of lasagna with the red sauce. You don't find this in Italy. I remember when my kids were in high school, we had 2 Italian exchange students that lived with us for the school year. And I was so proud and excited to make them a pan of lasagna, and they both looked at it like, what is that? So lasagna to them is going to have a white sauce, a creamy white sauce. So this didn't look like anything they recognized. But this is how most of us enjoy it in this country, so that's what I stuck with today. But yeah.
There's been some robust debate in the chat on choices of products and so forth.
Okay.
But one question that came in was from Karen, and she was curious, why did you use mayo instead of an oil for the pesto?
Because I wanted to have multiple purposes for the pesto. I love to make it at home and just keep it in a jar, and we use it on sandwiches and on bagels during the week. And if you use the mayo, you get a nice creamy consistency, and it's a great flavorful mayonnaise option. And it also makes a great pasta sauce, and I wish you were here to give it a try.
Another question just came in. Will the recipe for the cashew cream sauce be available?
It could be, sure. No problem.
Again, if you'd like to receive today's recipes, just send an email to programming@ranchomiragelibrary.org. And once we have those from Shannon, we will respond and make sure that you get all the recipes for today's dishes.
Okay. I'm all set here.
Would be a great time if there's any other questions from anyone watching today or anyone in our small audience has any questions. We'll wait a couple minutes here just to see if any questions come in via the chat or the Q&A.
Need to make our lasagna look a little prettier. Needs a little basil leaf there.
Chef Shannon, does the impossible meat cook the same as regular?
Yes. The only thing is that it's not It doesn't have the animal fat in it that regular beef would have, so you do need to put a little something in your pan so that it won't stick as you cook it. But yeah, it comes like in a block, a square block, and you just drop it in the pan the same as you would some hamburger. Yeah, it's easy to cook with. I think they purposely made it so that it's, cooks the same, handles the same, so that you can swap it in and out of your recipes easily. And people tell me that it's very difficult to tell the difference with the taste. So you'll have to let me know what you think.
Lots of great comments coming in on how much people have enjoyed today's presentation. One other question, someone was curious on why you chose not to toast the bread for the bruschetta.
I did, but I toasted it at home an hour ago because I didn't have a toaster here. But absolutely, crusty, toasty bread is the best way to enjoy the bruschetta and everything else, the sandwiches. Yeah, that was the best idea I could come up with, having to prepare this here.
Another question came in. If you'd like to answer, they're curious if are you a vegan?
Yes, I am. I'm in my mid-50s. I was raised as a vegetarian, and in my late 40s, I became a vegan. And for those of you that took my first culinary series here, has it been 2 years? 3 years now with the pandemic? I'm not sure. Right before the pandemic hit. For those of you that came to see our guest, Dr. Michael Greger, he is the man that I credit with making that change. Back then, I was doing a lot of work with cancer patients. I was working with an organization that's no longer here in town, but I was doing cooking workshops and helping people tailor their food to regain their strength, to help fight their illnesses, et cetera. And so I always have made it a point to stay up to date on health and nutrition. And I was at a conference in Las Vegas, and I signed up for several workshops throughout the conference. And one of the workshops was by someone that I hadn't heard of at the time, Dr. Michael Greger. And I thought, oh, okay, this fills my afternoon, okay. And I went in and was just so impressed. He's a dynamic presenter. For those of you that were here, you saw firsthand what a great presenter he is. And the best thing about him is he doesn't push. He gives you information. He gives you the latest data. And with that information, I continued to learn and continued to seek information. And it was shortly after that I decided to make the change from vegetarian to vegan. And it used to be sort of a dirty word, the vegan, so many negative connotations, but I think things have changed now for the better. I know that when people find out that I'm not instantly the butt of the joke, or, people are a little more open-minded and a little more tolerant and accepting, and a lot more curious. I get more questions now than I ever have before on why and how. And I know there are a lot of people out there that would like to get started but don't know where to start. So that's where I really hope these classes will help encourage you to try new things, try new products. Even if you don't, I never recommend somebody just totally throw away everything in the pantry and the refrigerator and buy all these products that you're not familiar with. I think you should start one at a time. That's my best advice. If you're used to using normal mayonnaise, swap it out for vegan mayonnaise. And then, the next time you run out of butter, buy some vegan butter. Try a couple different brands. And just slowly make changes like that. And it's much, much easier that way, and more likely to be a long-lasting habit if you do it that way.
Great. Thank you so much for today's presentation. Lots of comments coming in saying thank you. Also have seen the emails coming in. When Shannon has a chance to get all of the recipes together in one document, then we will make sure that everyone that is interested gets those. Again, if you'd like to, send an email to programming@ranchomiragelibrary.org. So with that, we will say goodbye for today, and it smells amazing in here. And hopefully we will see you all next month for our final presentation in this culinary journey series, as we will be going to Mexico. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.